The story begins with a 15-year-old student named Michael. That day wasn't a good one for him. While riding the train, he suddenly felt nauseous and dizzy. Forced to get off in the middle of the rain, his condition only grew worse. At that moment, a woman named Hanna happened to pass by the alley. Seeing Michael weak and pale, Hanna decided to help him. She brought him to her home so he could rest and have a cup of warm coffee to recover a little. Once they arrived at Hanna's house, Michael began to feel better. He thanked her for her kindness, then said goodbye and went back home. Not long after, when Michael arrived home, his family immediately called a doctor. The doctor said that Michael had scarlet fever, a contagious illness, and that he needed to rest at home for at least 2 months. Hearing that, his family left him alone in his room. Lying there weak and restless, Michael suddenly remembered Hanna, the woman who had helped him 3 months earlier. Determined, he went out to find her house. When he finally did, he brought a small bouquet of flowers and thanked her once again. But Hanna seemed indifferent, as if she wasn't pleased to see him. Even so, she got ready for work and asked Michael to wait outside. Michael stepped out, but forgot to close the door, and from there, he could clearly see Hanna changing her clothes. Shortly after, they went their separate ways. It was then that Michael learned the truth. Hanna worked as a train conductor, and she lived entirely on her own. Later that day, after returning from work, Hanna was drawing fuel when she noticed Michael standing by her door. She asked him to help, and together they finished the task. Afterward, Michael looked shy and nervous, while Hanna smiled and told him to take a bath. Michael hesitated, afraid she might peek, but Hanna reassured him that she wouldn't. Still, the air between them grew warmer, filled with quiet tension and unspoken feelings. That evening marked the beginning of a closeness that would change both of their lives forever. After returning home from Hanna's place, Michael told his family that he had gotten lost, which was why he came home late. His younger siblings didn't believe him, but his mother did. He said that he would return to school the next day, and his father fully supported him. The next morning, Michael went straight to Hanna's house. He helped her tidy up and fix small things around the home, trying to make her smile again. Days passed peacefully, filled with laughter and warmth, as if the world belonged only to the two of them. But the next day, something changed. On the train, Michael deliberately sat in the second carriage. When Hanna saw that, she grew distant. Later, when Michael came to her house, she acted as if she didn't know him at all. Confused, Michael asked why she was behaving that way. With a cold tone, Hanna said she was disappointed. She had felt ignored when he sat apart from her. She told him she didn't want to see him and harshly told him to leave. Heartbroken, Michael cried. After some time, he went back inside and confessed honestly that he loved Hanna deeply. He asked if she loved him too. Hanna hesitated, then nodded softly. And just like that, they were close again, pretending nothing had ever happened. Time moved on. We return to the present day, where all of this turns out to be Michael's memories. He is now an old man living in Berlin, working as a lawyer, preparing for another day in court. The story flashes back once more to his youth. At school, Michael met a girl named Sophie. She seemed interested in him and was the first to start a conversation. Soon, it was Michael's birthday. His friends threw him a surprise party, and Sophie invited him inside to celebrate. But Michael refused. He had already made a promise to someone else. His friends were disappointed, and Sophie looked heartbroken. That night, Michael went to Hanna's house as usual. He read her a storybook, but something felt different. Hanna seemed distant, even cold, and showed no joy, not even on his birthday. Michael wondered why Hanna never asked about him, why she didn't seem to care. After a short argument, Hanna suddenly told him to leave. The next day, while Michael was playing with his friends, Hanna quietly packed her belongings. When Michael arrived at her house again, it was empty. Hanna was gone, without a word, without goodbye. Michael stood in silence, crushed by sadness. He gathered his things and slowly walked back home, carrying a heart full of longing and loss. In the present day, Michael already has a daughter named Julia. Julia has just come home from school, smiling brightly, happy to see her father again. Then the story takes us back to Michael's younger years. He is now studying law at Heidelberg Law School in 1966. Once again, Michael draws the attention of a classmate named Carl. One afternoon, after class ends, Carl invites Michael to attend a court trial. When they arrive at the courthouse, Michael accidentally drops his pen. As he bends down to pick it up, his eyes freeze in shock. The defendant on trial is none other than Hanna, now 43 years old. During the trial, it's revealed that Hanna once served as a member of the SS Nazi. She had accepted a job offer as a camp guard because she desperately needed money. Eventually, she was assigned to a concentration camp where the tragedy took place. Hanna was accused of selecting elderly women and allowing them to be killed. In other words, she was charged with murdering prisoners. But Hanna denied it, insisting that she only ordered the women to be transferred, and that the decision was made collectively, not by her alone. Later, a witness, a former prisoner, is brought in. She says Hanna was different from other guards. Hanna often called the children and weaker women to read books aloud to her. At first, the witness thought Hanna was kind, but later realized that Hanna had sent many of them to their deaths. Hearing this, Michael freezes. He suddenly realizes something crucial. Hanna couldn't read or write. The trial continues. Another survivor testifies about a bombing that destroyed a church used as a shelter for women. That night, the building burned to the ground, with nearly 300 women trapped inside. They all perished because the doors had been locked from the outside. 6 guards were on duty, but none opened the doors. Only one woman survived the inferno. Days later, the 5 remaining guards are summoned to testify. Their statements are vague and contradictory. Then, it's Hanna's turn. When asked why she and the others didn't open the church doors, Hanna answers honestly, they couldn't let the prisoners out, because if they escaped, chaos would break loose. Everything happened too fast. Explosions, snow, panic. It was impossible, she said, to open the church where the Jewish prisoners were held. The judge listens carefully and begins to understand the situation. But when the other guards are questioned again, they turn against Hanna, claiming she was the one fully responsible for the tragedy. Hanna denies it, explaining that the decision was made together, and that all 5 guards wrote the same order. But the others insist Hanna wrote it alone. The judge then tells Hanna to write the report again. If her handwriting matches the original document, she will be found guilty and held solely responsible for the deaths of the 300 women in that church. Hanna remained silent for a long time, deep in thought. No one knows what goes through her mind. Until finally, she admits it. She confesses that she was the one who wrote the report. The next day, a professor, who knows about Michael's feelings toward one of the defendants, asks him what really happened. Michael admits that he has information that could lighten Hanna's sentence. He also knows that Hanna herself could have proven her innocence, but for some reason, she chose to remain silent. Hearing that, the professor advises Michael to visit Hanna in prison. The next day, Michael went to the prison. After waiting for quite some time, visitors were finally allowed to enter. However, even though Hanna had been waiting with hope, Michael decided not to see her. He stood quietly for a moment outside the visitation room, then turned away. His mind was filled with confusion, guilt, sadness, and memories he could never fully forget. A few days later, the final court session was held. As Hanna entered the courtroom, the atmosphere turned tense. Many people stared at her with anger and resentment. The judge then read the verdict. Out of the 6 defendants, 5 were sentenced to 4 years and 3 months in prison. Meanwhile, Hanna Schmitz was found to be the one most responsible for the deaths of more than 300 women in the concentration camp, and was sentenced to life imprisonment. Time passed. Michael was now an adult, a father to a little girl named Julia. One day, he visited his mother's house with Julia. During their conversation, Michael confessed that his marriage with Carl could no longer be saved, and they were planning to separate on good terms. He asked his mother not to worry, assuring her that Carl had become a successful lawyer and was doing well in life. As for Michael, he tried to move forward, though the memories of Hanna continued to linger in his heart. Sometime after the final trial, Michael grew restless and uneasy. He began reading books aloud, recording his voice, and sending those recordings to Hanna in prison. Hearing Michael's voice again moved Hanna deeply. Over time, she began memorizing every story he read. Eventually, she visited the prison library and borrowed the same books, listening to Michael's voice as she slowly taught herself to read. Years passed, and Hanna finally learned to write. She sent a letter to Michael, asking him to keep recording more of the stories they once shared. Each recording brought her comfort and a sense of connection she had long lost. One day, Michael received a call from the prison warden. He was told that Hanna had been imprisoned for more than 20 years and that she would soon be released. But she had no family, no friends. The only person who had ever written to her was Michael. The warden hoped Michael could help her start a new life. A few days later, Michael visited the prison. They met again after so many years apart. Michael told her he had arranged a small place to stay and a sewing job to help her begin anew. Hanna thanked him sincerely, though their conversation felt quiet and distant. It seemed as if she wanted to say something more, perhaps about the past, but Michael remained guarded, still hurt by her sudden disappearance long ago. He said goodbye, promising to return a week later to pick her up. When that day finally came, Michael arrived, only to receive devastating news. Hanna had taken her own life the night before her release. She left behind a note and a final request for Michael, that her savings be donated to the children who had survived the concentration camp. Michael was filled with regret for having been so cold to her. A week later, he met one of the survivors, an elderly woman who had once endured the same camp. Michael explained that for most of her life, Hanna had been unable to read or write, and that she had only learned through his recordings. At first, the woman doubted his story, but when Michael revealed who he truly was, someone who had known Hanna closely, she finally believed him. When Michael offered Hanna's inheritance, the woman refused to take the money. Instead, she chose to keep only a small tin box, the one Hanna had treasured, as a symbol of memory, sorrow, and forgiveness.
I'll keep the tin. Keep it going.
The film ends with Michael visiting Hanna's grave, accompanied by his daughter, Julia. There, he finally opens up and tells her the truth about his past, about the love, the mistakes, and the lessons he learned from Hanna. The message we can take from this story is simple yet powerful. When someone leaves without saying goodbye, the pain can linger for years. A man may find it hard to love again, even when his heart still remembers. And a woman who feels ignored or unwanted may choose to withdraw completely. The story of Michael and Hanna reminds us that unspoken love, or love left unresolved, can become a lifelong regret. As always, thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.